Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, live music Thursday with the Ukrainian folk band Yagody, who will perform in Florence at Bombyx tonight.
Plus a preview of the fundraiser helping Drag Story Hour in the Berkshires. We'll talk with Poppy the Bubbly about Extravaganza, Once Upon a Comeback happening at Wander in Pittsfield on April 18th.
But first, what even happened this week?
Where do we even start? With the ousting of sex pests, or the naval blockade, or AI images coming out of the White House that aren't as fun as the Lego music video from last week?
How about that last one?
Sure.
Time for our weekly conversation with U.S. Congressman from the 2nd Congressional District of Massachusetts, the ranking member of the Rules Committee in the Democratic Party, U.S. Congressman Jim McGovern. In a segment we call McGoverning with McGovern, and it's been a strange week in a strange decade, let's say, when it comes to what's been emanating from the person holding the highest office in the land. Everyone has probably by now seen this apparently AI-generated image on social media depicting Donald Trump as Jesus or a doctor, depending on who you ask.
Dr. Jesus.
Dr. Jesus. Yeah, I like that. You know, maybe it's an honorary doctorate. While at the same time, Donald Trump insulting Pope Leo, the first U.S.-born Pope. You are a Catholic and you are a member of Congress, and you had some thoughts about that. Would you like to share those thoughts with our listeners today?
Yeah, well, first of all, we can't normalize any of this. And one of my concerns, is that when I listen to the reaction of some of my Republican colleagues, is it's kind of like, well, that's just Trump. You can't take him too seriously. This is the president of the United States of America. And he's posting a picture of himself where he basically wants you to think of him as Jesus. He insults Pope Leo, as a Catholic, just as an American citizen, as somebody who cares about the world. I'm just offended and disgusted by him. And again, this is not normal. This man is not well. Somebody should stage an intervention because, if you were to post something like that, or I would have posted something like that, or if you were working in a business and posted something like that, you would be held accountable. People would say, you need to leave, or I find that offensive, and take that off immediately. This is craziness that we're seeing unfold. It's coming at a time when the world is even more chaotic, in large part because of Donald Trump's views on how to deal with adversaries and even how to deal with friends. And the Prime Minister of Italy, who's a right-winger, felt compelled to issue a statement condemning Donald Trump for his attacks on Pope Leo and for the post that he put up on his social media. So, this is it's exhausting, but we cannot normalize it. We cannot just say this is Trump being Trump.
Although Jesus did play the Trump card in a follow-up AI post yesterday, if you've seen that one from President Trump. You did say that Donald Trump is not well. Meanwhile, your friend and colleague, Representative Jamie Raskin, along with 50 other Democrats, but I'm not sure if it's you, co-sponsored in the House a bill on Tuesday to create a 17-member commission dedicated to evaluating Donald Trump's fitness for office under the 25th Amendment. Are you part of that? I didn't think this was how the 25th Amendment works, but can you talk a little more about that?
Yeah, the 25th Amendment really, concerns his cabinet. The point of this is that leaders here in the House or in the Senate ought to understand, that there's reason to be concerned here and that people need to take appropriate action. I listened to him in his press conferences. He's all over the place. It makes no sense. And I don't even think he has the same thought in the morning that he does in the afternoon that he does in the evening. And again, he has access to the nuclear codes. This is a guy who can order troops into war. This is a person who can do a lot of earth-shattering things with the stroke of a pen. And he's behaving erratically. So, this is just kind of an example that people are very concerned about what they're seeing unfold.
But it won't hold any teeth, or would it if this were?
I don't think it would. And by the way, the Republicans control the House. They control the Senate. It won't even see the light of day on the House floor.
Mm-hmm. Speaking with U.S. Congressman Jim McGovern, we are at war, and he does hold the nuclear codes, as you mentioned. And now a handful of Republicans more would be needed to reach a 60-vote threshold for the War Powers Resolution approval. It's something you've been pushing for many weeks now, even I think before Iran was invaded with Venezuela and the action that took place there at the beginning of the year. This, I believe, is going to be on the House floor again today. There are certain Republicans that are starting to feel the pressure, especially with a 60-day benchmark that traditionally marks the end of unauthorized military engagements from the Oval Office. Is it going to pass this time, or is it going to wait till the 60-day threshold, do you think, before actual action may take place in a bipartisan fashion?
I mean, I would like to think there are enough Republicans that will join with us, and it will pass. Again, the Senate has not followed suit and done what I thought it should do. But nonetheless, I think, if we can pass something in the House, it is a signal to him that people, are very uncomfortable with his approach to Iran. Again, I don't even know what the hell we're fighting Iran for right now. The Hormuz was open before he launched this war. Strait of Hormuz was closed. Meanwhile, the price of gas is going through the roof, not just in the United States, but all around the world. And it doesn't seem like we're any closer to resolving this. Sometimes when you make a mistake, the best thing to do is just to kind of own it and move on to something else. Trump seems to want to double down on that mistake. And again, this war has already cost the lives of both service members. Hundreds of American service members have been wounded. We don't have the exact number because they won't share it with us. And it's costing you over $1 billion a day. We have spent over $50 billion, 50 billion with a B, on this war. I mean, how many hospitals, how many schools, how many senior centers, would that build? How many roads and bridges could it repair? How many people could it help in terms of getting them health care? Or how can we use that towards ending hunger in this country? And we're blowing it on a reckless, illegal war halfway around the world.
The big news locally in your district this week, Congressman McGovern, is the closing of Hampshire College. Are you hearing anything from your constituents or the people that work there about the impact of this closing at the end of 2026?
Yeah, I mean, we're hearing from some people who work there, and also some people in the community who view Hampshire College with affection and as a part of the community. And it's kind of a sad development. And this is not the first time Hampshire has kind of raised the issue of closing, and because of financial considerations. But I think people were kind of hoping that maybe there'd be a way out of this, so that it wouldn't close. But Hampshire, by the way, is not the only school in Massachusetts or in the country that's closing. And Anna Maria College in Worcester has announced that it's probably going to shut its doors. And so, I think we have to figure out other things that we can do to prevent this from happening again, because our colleges and universities are an important part of our local economies. They're an important part of our local cultures. And it's just very sad when you read that one of these incredible institutions is shutting its doors.
There was big news in the world of global elections this week in the defeat of Viktor Orban in Hungary. Some people are saying it is a precursor to what may happen in other places where authoritarianism has started to rule the roost, including in the U.S. What's your take on the defeat of Viktor Orban this week?
I was overjoyed because Viktor Orban is a bully and is a fascist, and basically was undermining Hungarian democracy. And I think what I'm also pleased about is that he accepted the defeat, because I wasn't sure that would have been the case a couple of weeks ago. And I'm taking note of the fact that there's been silence out of the White House. I mean, Trump has barely said a word about it, notwithstanding the fact that he endorsed Orban publicly and that he sent his vice president over to campaign for him. Mm-hmm. But I think this should be an inspiration to people here in this country that you can stop this stuff, that elections do matter. And I hope it is a precursor to what we'll see here in the United States.
There was a story in the Boston Globe this week about threats to congressional offices coming in via voicemail messages. The story, you can hear in the digital version of it, the actual threats that have been coming into congressional offices.
And I pray for all of you to get cancer.
You deserve to be hung until dead for treason.
You all deserve to rot in hell.
I pray to God that he gives you an incurable, fatal case of AIDS with syphilis, so you can suffer a slow, miserable death.
You better beef your security up.
We are coming for you.
The story itself seems to keep the identity of the Congress people secure, and yet it says that it is a bipartisan thing that's been happening to both sides of the aisle. Did you read this Boston Globe story? Are you someone who has been threatened in this way? Terrible things being said to congresspeople via their voicemail.
I didn't read the story, but we get a fair amount of threats, and I really appreciate the interns that we have working in our office, both in our district offices, but down here in Washington, who have to take a lot of the incoming calls. And for some, it's a little startling that there are people out there that will call in and either leave messages or call in and say to somebody who answers the phone things that, quite frankly, could only be characterized as threats. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you never know whether they're serious or not, but you have to take every threat seriously. But this country, has become even more polarized under this administration. And Donald Trump says things that could be interpreted as threats, and I think that gives license to others to do the same. But it's just, we got to push back on it. I mean, it doesn't matter what you believe, whether your views are on the left or the right or somewhere in between. People in this country should be able to believe what they want and say what they want, and elected officials should be able to do the same without fear of physical harm. And, being an intern in Washington, or being an intern in the congressional office now is a very different experience than it was when I was an intern in the late 1970s and early 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
And that's unfortunate. Our politics has become more crass, and people feel they can say whatever the hell they want to say. That's unfortunate.
Couple of quick listener questions. Jennifer Scarlott, who's part of River Valley for Palestine in Northampton, said last week after a meeting with the Democratic Socialists of America of New York City, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez announced for the first time that she'll oppose all U.S. military aid to Israel, including so-called defensive weapons. Following her lead, Congressman Ro Khanna made the same pledge, and for the first time in history, J Street, the pro-Israel lobby group, announced it opposes all U.S. military aid to Israel. She asks, in the past, you voted in support of so-called defensive weapons to Israel while opposing other weapons shipments. Will you now join with J Street and the aforementioned political colleagues and publicly state that you oppose all U.S. military aid to Israel?
And the answer is yes, I have. I was asked about that a week ago, and I said that I would. So the answer is yes.
Simple answer to a simple question. Carl Meyer asks, Dear Congressman McGovern, just before Pocky Wieland left us, I got a call that it was time to say goodbye. Ever herself, Pocky's last question of me, so tell me what good trouble you're planning. Carl Meyer said his answer is he intends to keep making the case that the way to ensure us successfully defend our democracy and Constitution and protect fair outcomes in the upcoming elections is to gather, before the end of September, in a First Amendment-protected We the People march on the National Mall, in full view of the White House and Supreme Court. He's asking, in Pocky's memory, would you commit to marching if that time indeed comes to pass?
Yes, if I'm here, absolutely. I think of Pocky all the time, and I'm sitting in my Washington office right now looking at a picture of John Lewis and I getting arrested together. But every time I look at John Lewis, I think of Pocky Wieland, someone who got into good trouble on a regular basis and made a difference. Look, these are extraordinary times. This moment in our history is unlike anything I have experienced in my lifetime. And we can't just shrug it off and say, well, this too shall pass. We hope it will pass. It's only going to pass if people are vigilant and if people are active. This president does not believe in free, fair elections. You saw what he did on January 6th. It is hard for me to believe that he's just going to sit back and let the midterms go off without a hitch. I think we have to be prepared for anything and everything. And I think we need to be outspoken and we need to be present to make sure that he knows that people are not going to let him get away with anything.
I know that you're going to be in Ashland at the Ashland Public Library on Saturday at 10 a.m., and residents of Ashland are encouraged to stop by for coffee with a congressman. That's one opportunity to interact with you. You can also send an email to us like Carl Meyer did and like Jennifer Scarlott did. What's giving you hope this week, Congressman?
Well, I met yesterday with all the chancellors from the UMass system, including our local chancellor from UMass Amherst, Chancellor Reyes. And, higher education is under threat by this administration, but yet education is absolutely vital to our economic future. And quite frankly, to our democracy. And everybody that I met with, seems more determined than ever to defend education at every level. And I felt a little defiance and a little more fight than I've seen before. And I think that's a hopeful sign. I was at UMass Amherst last week for 3 different events, but I was also there for a protest that the UMass Democrats put on to protest this war in Iran. And I really admire and respect that activism, that people care enough to show up and to express their views and to try to make this world and this country a little bit better. So our colleges and universities, and again, I'm sad about the news about Hampshire College, but they're vital. I mean, they are treasures in our communities, and we need to do everything we can to protect them and be wind at their back.
U.S. Congressman from the 2nd Congressional District of Massachusetts joins us every Thursday. If you've got a question for the Congressman, you can send it to me, thefab413@nepm.org, and we'll ask him for you. Thanks so much, Congressman.
All the best. Thanks.
We'll hear from Ukrainian ensemble Yagody, who will perform their bombastic take on traditional music at Bombix tonight, April 16th.
After, we help you make plans to dance for literacy in Pittsfield this weekend at a fundraiser for Drag Story Hour. We'll learn about Extravaganza Once Upon a Comeback next.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the Handle Factory Community Clay Studio in Shelburne Falls, part of the Asparagus Valley Pottery Trail, a tour of 8 studios featuring 30 potters, April 25th and 26th. Asparagus-Valley-Pottery-Trail.com. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar in Hatfield, dedicated to custom solar installations, electric vehicle charging solutions, and reliable long-term system support. Northeast-Solar.com.
You better work.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. The fairy tales are getting fierce this spring as Drag Story Hour Berkshires, a program of Berkshire Pride, presents Extravaganza Once Upon a Comeback, a dazzling fundraiser celebrating storytelling, self-expression, and the transformative power of books.
Taking place on Saturday, April 18th, the show begins at 8 p.m. and dancing will continue until dawn. Extravaganza is more than a fabulous night out. It is a vital fundraiser. Proceeds from the event directly support Drag Story Hour Berkshires' mission to provide free storytelling events throughout Berkshire County, expand access to diverse and affirming books, and foster literacy and inclusivity for children and families of all backgrounds, ensuring that every child has access to joyful, affirming spaces where they can see themselves reflected in the stories they read.
And with us to talk more about Drag Story Hour and this upcoming fundraiser is Cassie Christant of the Berkshire chapter of Drag Story Hour. Cassie's drag name is one of my favorites that I've heard in a while, Poppy de Bubbly. I'm a huge sparkling wine fan, and I'm a huge drag fan, so combining two great tastes that taste great together.
Yes. What a wonderful introduction. It makes me so happy to hear you both read all of those things. It feels good knowing, what we've got going on and what we're bringing here to our community.
How did you get into drag?
A wonderful question.
One pantyhose at a time.
Short of it. Well, actually, for me, it's one giant foam wig at a time.
Nice.
Because Poppy wears giant foam wigs. But
nice.
I've been a performer my whole life. I've always done theater. And I'm also now a mother, which is one of my favorite roles I've ever played. But I have 3 kiddos, and it's just impossible for me to audition and do theater. But I wanted to keep performing and telling stories because that's what's important to me about theater. So I actually found drag when I was in Chicago doing a production of Snow White and the 7 Drag Queens that ran at Hydrate, Chicago for 3 years. And I fell in love with my fellow drag queens and just learned about this world of exploring gender in a really magical way. And a question I get often, and I'll ask it so you don't have to, is, but I didn't know women could be drag queens too. And drag is really just a form of gender expression. So I do high femme drag. But also, if you come to the fundraiser, you might get introduced to a new persona. I'm doing Papa de Bubbly.
Oh.
And I'm exploring a drag king lifestyle, kind of debuting this weekend.
Nice.
Talk about what that feels like as a human being to explore those different avenues of yourself on stage.
Totally. I've been teaching a masterclass called The Art of Drag. And in that class, I ask all of my students, ranging anywhere from like youth to adults, I asked them to explore different parts of gender within themselves. And I realized that I hadn't really explored the full spectrum myself, and that I was just, in love with Poppy, and Poppy's wonderful and she's not going anywhere. But also that as I'm getting older, I'm also discovering this new part of me, just like what it feels like to be masculine and have those masculine ownership areas of my body and my expression. And then again, that question, I didn't realize that women could do drag as well. It's like, well, women, first of all, can do anything. And second of all, I like to embody that and kind of show that to the community when we're doing Drag Story Hour, that you can be the highest, most confident version of yourself, and that can be yourself, but then also having these characters as a tool to like access these different parts of you and your expression are so important.
Talk about Drag Story Hour, because it's a national organization and the Berkshires chapter is what you're operating, but like you're part of a much larger picture that is bringing drag to young kids and getting them more involved in this sort of work and letting them acclimate.
Yes. So Drag Story Hour was started in San Francisco in 2015. And part of the reason why I feel so connected is I'm actually a Bay Area girl myself. I was born and raised in California, Bay Area. And so that's where I come from. And it just started off as drag queens reading stories to children in libraries, and then just grew into this global phenomenon. I think it's because the stories that we're bringing are inclusive stories. It's not just us drag queens and kings and in-betweens reading stories about drag queens. We're reading stories about autism. We're reading stories about different views, people of color, different abilities, what it feels like to be scared, just emotions. And so we're giving youth and families, anyone who comes to Drag Story Hour, also, sorry, ADHD tangent here, but some of our biggest fans are adults, and adults coming to us to say, like, I just needed a reminder of what it's like to be joyful. And so in addition to all of these important things and reading these stories for children to see themselves in these stories, we're also bringing and spreading joy and literacy, which are two super important things. So just even having my own children at Story Hour and just seeing the joy in my own children and my own community, it's just magical knowing what we're spreading.
I think there's a missed opportunity here. Don't you think that Drag Story Hour should team up with Reading Rainbow? Why hasn't this happened yet?
One of our drag kings, Sativo Green, often wears a Lamar Burton Reading Rainbow shirt to Drag Story Hours to represent. We're definitely representing like the amazing storytellers of the past and like bowing down to them as we're presenting.
Can you talk about, you mentioned Sativo Green, the other drag kings and queens that will be part of this event, Extravaganza, Once Upon a Comeback, this Saturday, April 18th at 8 p.m. at Wander Pittsfield?
We have, Sativo Green, he has been with us since the beginning. He lives in Pittsfield. So it's also nice is we're kind of like all over the map. In North Adams, we have two queens. We have Veronica Baked. She is a Majesty of the Berkshires pageant winner. And Harry Debbie, who's our newest addition. And all of these people are also performers. So it's wonderful because they come from a performing background. So we have that theatricality of telling a story. We also have Bella Santarella, the Belle. I call her the Belle of the Berkshires. And she's the one who has hosted these Majesty of the Berkshires pageants. Poppy was the inaugural winner, so it's exciting. And there's another pageant this Friday in the Hampshires. But Bella's also seen at Wander at Drag Bingo. The Northern Lights Ball that we just had recently was hosted by Veronica Baked. She also teaches cooking classes to teens in drag because the baked part of hers has the adult spin of the baked, but also that she's an amazing baker and teaches classes to youth in the area and teens.
I've known Veronica Baked for a long time. They're an excellent person in all of the regards of the things that they bring. And I got to see Harry Debbie at an event a couple weeks ago at Mass Mocha, so that was great. And this year's extravaganza is supported by an independent bookstore in Pittsfield. Is that where the Drag Story Hours happen, or do they happen at the Pittsfield Athenaeum, which is what we learned is the name of the library, and they'll be on the show later too.
That's something I recently learned as well, but it's a really perfect timing because the Athenaeum is doing Berkshire BookCon, and this is the first this year. I know you'll talk to them all about that, so I'll let them tell that story. But we're thinking of our extravaganza kind of as the after party for BookCon. Indie Reader in Records is an amazing LGBT inclusive and beyond bookstore on North Street. I'm a fan of the bookstore, but also of the two owners. Both Lori and Emma are on the committee with me with Berkshire Pride, and I adore them both and what they've brought with their store. supporting local authors, and also supporting Drag Story Hour. So at the extravaganza, we're going to have a mini adult book fair. I know we all used to look forward to book fairs as kids and getting those little magazines, like what books am I going to buy? But they'll have that. And some of the vendors from their stores, including, she makes beautiful band book earrings. Her name is Leah. She's going to be there. Veronica's going to be doing drag oracle readings. So in addition to just a drag show, we're going to have the first hour will be like a social hour with coloring, with crafts, the drag show, and then the dance show led by DJ BFG. I'm just so grateful that we have her talents this year because she does the most fun dance parties. And it'll be at Wander Berkshires. With the many hats and foam wigs that I wear, one of them is also I'm the curator of experience at Wander. Jay has graciously let us use the space again, and it's just a perfect space to kind of cultivate all of these different magical happenings for adults to help us raise funds.
Not that long ago in Great Barrington, there was an issue of book banning. What is it like trying to schedule places where you're doing these activities, where you're reading out to the community? And have you experienced pushback?
That's such an important question. And we have had some pushback at some of our events. And I think part of it is making sure that we as a team are all up on our safety measures. Drag Story Hour National has a Shields Up program that really helps us making sure that we're keeping the peace and not causing any conflict. But also we've worked with, in the Berkshires, there's a chapter of the Parasol Patrol, and they come to events with giant rainbow umbrellas, playing Disney music, helping people feel safe coming to the events. But I feel like I've been very lucky. As you know, the Berkshires is such a small community, and I've met several people kind of like across the county where we have safe spaces. And what's even more magical is people are starting to reach out to us now. For example, both Mass Mocha and the Clark Shakespeare and Company reached out to us to bring Drag Story to them. And, as an art lover, it feels so lovely to have these institutions reaching out to you who are able to support and fund themselves. But then also what we're trying is to get into the indie readery and records and the small libraries in New Marlborough that don't have the funds. And so that's what this fundraiser is really helping us, allowing us to bring it to these neighborhoods where we are the first drag queen some of these children have ever seen. And the love letters that we receive from families about how we've changed confidence, we've changed language, conversations in their home. A quick tidbit I'd love to share about my own daughter. She's 6. She's FaceTiming with a friend that moved. Her friend said, I have a new best friend. My daughter, Winifred, says, oh, what is his or her or their name? Just nothing, just like that's what it is. And she's 6 years old. And just being able to have that part of her 6-year-old vocabulary, where for us, that takes additional thought. So we're helping to kind of like bridge that gap at such a young age, which is so important.
We're speaking with the drag king and queen, Poppy and Papa de Bubbly, a.k.a. Cassie Cristant, who is part of the Drag Story Hour fundraiser extravaganza that's happening this Saturday, April 18th at Wander Berkshires. There may be people who are listening to say, is this too heady or too advanced a concept for young people to be experiencing?
Yeah, again, thank you for asking that and giving us the opportunity to have this discussion, because I think one of the most important things is to have discussions and to have conversations and be able to ask questions. And that's what I say to people who are making mistakes, like apologize and move on. It's okay to make mistakes because we learn from them. But one of the best pieces of parenting advice I ever received is to answer the question that the children ask. And so they're already asking these questions, and we're providing a safe space for them to explore themselves. And I think the hardest part is the types of books that people think we're reading. And, we're reading award-winning, nationally acclaimed books. Harold and the Purple Crayon, that wasn't just made into a movie, is one of Veronica's favorite books to read because she loves purple, and the book is about imagination. So really, I think what's important to think about is like what we're bringing. We're bringing ultimate joy and confidence in being your true, authentic self. I also ask people, do you remember when you were 8 and you went to those birthday parties with clowns? It's not much different than that.
It is way less scary than those parties, honestly.
Although if you
anything-
bring orange drink to the party, I'm gonna be there. What is orange drink? Don't know, but it's orange.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, too, I say is like I've been teaching for over 25 years. I'm an educator. I have a college degree. I've done theater my whole life, and I'm a mother. What can be scary about that person being in a space? You know, and all of the people who are storytellers with us have these same type of resumes. Educators, worked at Mass MoCA, have taught and performed for years. So really what we're trying to do is just provide a safe space to have these authentic, joyful discussions.
Much like technology, it seems really advanced to you, but your kids are probably better at it.
Totally.
What's one of Poppy DeBubbly's favorite drag story hours to read?
I love the author and illustrator Jessica Love, like Julie and the Mermaid. But also, I do something that's like my own thing. I feel like I should trademark it, called the Imagination Backpack. But basically what it does is it gives everyone, and I invite the adults to say yes, like yes and the good old improv, but to say yes to their imaginations, and that like this is a safe space for us to be silly together. And again, like for the children, like you said, they know how to do it already because they are receiving permission daily, but adults don't give themselves permission to experience joy in just a simple way of being silly. What I say is come to an event, in drag, out of drag, watch an event, volunteer. That's how I got started at Berkshire Pride. I just called up and I said, I want to volunteer. I think it's the best way is just to show up. Well, I just want to share one thing Monty mentioned about my name earlier. Poppy is also connected for me because I'm a California girl, and that's the California flower, poppies. But I just thought of this new thing, and I'm going to always think of you, Monty, and thank you for that. It's just like how we are, Drag Story Hour is a giant garden helping people grow. And so like the poppy part of that for myself is that's what I hope to bring with every event that we do, just helping minds, imaginations, hearts just, grow and blossom, and that we can be an avenue for that, I think is really special. So it's kind of a twofold because it's the bubbles, the champagne, the celebration, but now I have a new thing to attach to Poppy with that garden. So I thank you for that.
That's beautiful.
Yay.
And now I'll ruin it by calling you a heroine of drag.
Wow, Monty.
I'll take it. Just add it to my bio.
Camp and humor is what drag is all about.
It's true.
I mean, if you can't take a little tea,
No, that's fair.
Drag Story Hour Berkshires has a mission to provide free storytelling events throughout Berkshire County, and you have an opportunity to support Drag Story Hour Berkshires this Saturday, April 18th, 8 p.m., Wander Pittsfield. It is extravaganza once upon a comeback. It'll begin at 8, and dancing will go all through dawn with some of our favorite Berkshire-based drag performers, including Papa DeBubbly and maybe Poppy DeBubbly too. Who knows who will show up? A.K.A. Cassie Cristant, who's been joining us to tell us about this organization.
It feels like Poppy has a curfew, and maybe Papa gets to stay out all night.
Yeah, maybe.
He doesn't leave the house often.
I think you just unlocked a new part of my persona, I think. Maybe Poppy is more of daytime and Papa might be a little bit more nighttime.
That's the dynamic in my household, so there we go.
That's true. That's very true.
Butterfly in the sky.
Find tickets and more information on the extravaganza Once Upon a Comeback fundraiser for Drag Story Hour through Wander's website, wanderberkshires.com.
Now to have a little live music Thursday with the rich tradition of sounds made by Yagody.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. Founded in Lviv in 2016, Yagody began as a spontaneous musical project that grew out of their acting experience and love of folk music. Their approach to folk songs is unconventional. They reinterpret ancient melodies, immersing themselves in their drama and musical atmosphere.
Each song for them is a separate action, a mini performance in which Ukrainian vocals, Balkan rhythms, and ancient songs merge and find their way into the hearts of the audience. Their music is the vibrations of nature, the call of blood that unites generations. It is a journey into the soul of everyone who is ready to feel connected to their own roots.
Their music has been heard from Norway to South Africa, from Romania to France. In 2024, Yagody became a finalist in the national selection for the Eurovision Song Contest with the song Tsunamia. And tonight they'll take the stage at Bombix in Florence. Welcome for an extra special live music Thursday, Yagody. Let's hear a song.
Позаду розвивався розмай, там все розлучала одна пара, під нею дрижала земля. Як ти мене, милий, покинеш, я гідко плакати буду, а якщо стемніє на дворі, в садочок гуляти піду, 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 піду. А вже на дворі потемніло, дівчина гуляти пішла, не знали ні батько, ні мати, де їхня поділась дочка. Пішли браття шукати, лежить у саду не жива. Пішли браття шукати, лежить у саду не жива. Жива, 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 жива. Дивіться ви, хлопці, дівчата, до чого любов довела. Така я вродлива Маруся, в могилу з кохання пішла. Дивіться ви, хлопці, дівчата, до чого любов довела. Така я вродлива Маруся, в могилу з кохання пішла. Пішла, 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 пішла.
Live Music Thursday with Yagody here in the fabulous 413. I don't know what they were saying, but it sure made me want to throw off the mantle of my oppressors. Just the rhythm of the whole thing. There's something inspirational that empowers you and makes you feel strong and ready to fight. Maybe more of a spiritual fight, maybe, than a physical fight. But
Indeed. There's literally hundreds of thousands of folk songs in Ukraine. How do you pick the ones that you want to modernize for Yagody?
And we should say that there are the four women of Yagody who are singing and playing accordion, and then your interpreter/drummer who's drumming on a recycling bin in the back will act as interpreter. Tam, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
I will translate for the girls.
Thank you.
Great.
Він питає, що у нас стільки пісень, 200 тисяч, тому подібне більше. І от як ви вибираєте з тих пісень, яку ви хотіли би от зробити, так усучаснити?
Вони самі до нас приходять. Так і потрібно сказати, як Надя каже, до нас вони приходять, у нас є бабці, де ми теж їх беремо. Ми просто відслідковуємо також, скажи, що є Polyphonic Project. Polyphonic – це є така музична платформа, де дуже багато зібрано українських народних пісень. Звідти теж беремо.
So basically those songs are coming to us themselves. So this is the natural way how it's happening, but also they have a grandmas who were singing those songs to them, and also there's a big platform in Ukraine of Ukrainian folk songs. So there's different ways how you can use this.
Does Yagody perform all traditional folk songs, or do you write your own lyrics? And I guess especially, are you adding to the folk tradition, given what's been going on in Ukraine since the formation of the band with the incursion of Russia?
Yeah, so we are writing our own songs too. And when we are writing our own songs, we are putting there not just one particular folk element, but this is the element from all around the world. But definitely Ukraine is the main. So what we say always is that the music, the international melodies, they are like rivers. They are flowing into our Ukrainian musical ocean. And also the cherry of the Yagody is that we are using samples which doesn't exist in this world. So we are creating them, and then we are checking that in different languages. What does it mean? And at the end, it has a very deep meaning. And you can hear those, like we're screaming, or it's like a samples we're looping them.
I think that's where like a lot of the acting training comes in too.
Yeah. You were formed in 2014 or 2010. I see. Well, let's see. Yeah, they had a previous project in 2010 and then proposed creating a band. Anyway, there was you were forced to flee Ukraine and the Donbass region after there was some violence. Is your home base still Ukraine? Are you able to be in Ukraine? Or given how far you've traveled as Yagody, where is home now?
So basically, I think we should start from the very beginning. And the founder of the band is Zoriana Dybowska, and she's a professional actress. And so she found a student. The students were in a theater, and she decided to create a sort of a band, just singing the songs. And so this is how everything started. And Tatiana is one of her students, professional actress. And by the way, you mentioned Donbass, and before that, Zoriana, she was living in Donbass, but she was the only person probably who was speaking Ukrainian language, and she she was like a, I don't know if you have this saying, a black duck. We
say black sheep sometimes.
Black sheep,
yes.
yeah.
Yes.
She was the one, but she was fighting for this. Зоря, да, ти ж в Донбасі тільки?
9 років я жила і працювала в театрі драматичному.
9 years she was there. And we started basically turn into international probably after the war. And we played like in South Africa, United States, different European countries.
Cool.
So are you able to go back to Ukraine, or do you?
So yeah, girls, they live in Ukraine.
Okay.
They live in 4 days. They're
going to go back home. Yes, you can see the joy. Well, we hope that you enjoy the rest of your time in the States before you go back. You will be at Bombix in Florence tonight performing. We're speaking with Yagody, a very special Ukrainian live music Thursday. Let's take a little break, and then we'll come back and we'll hear another song.
Yeah. You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. We're having a special live music Thursday with the Ukrainian folk band Yagody, who will be at Bombix Center for Arts and Equity in Florence tonight. Let's hear another song.
Поплинь, не спинися, ти мій милий, обізвися, ой, обізвися, хоч на орання, гей, обізвися, хоч до рання, чи дочекамся кохання, ой, обізвися, хоч до рання, чи дочекамся кохання, ой. я кохання, чи почую лем признання я, ой, не почую тополин, гей, не почую тополину в небо, я лем та пташина я, ой, не почую тополину в небо, я лем та пташина, ой, поплили вінці, поплили дівчиноньки, ся смутили я, ой, що єдині стануть під вінці, що єдині стануть під вінці, другі заплачуть в комірці я, ой, що єдині стануть під вінці, другі заплачуть в комірці я.
That's so cool.
That is so cool. It puts you in a trance. That is Yagody, who are performing tonight at the Bombyx Center for Arts and Equity on tour before they go back to their home in Ukraine in a few days.
Speaking of, like, I assume that, like, you've met Ukrainian immigrants, like, along the way that have come to your concerts in the U.S. What's it like interacting with them after your shows?
Питають, як вам от ці іммігранти, які приходять на ваш концерт, ну, українці, як вони реагують на ваш виступ і розкажіть про це.
Та українцям дуже насправді приємно, що особливо коли ми приїжджаємо в маленькі міста і там мало українців, то вони ніби аж цього дуже чекали і дуже бажали. А щодо емігрантів, то нас насправді дивує, бо тут українську мову знають поколіннями, і навіть ті люди, які народилися тут в Америці, вони завдяки своїм бабусям, дідусям вивчили українську мову, і ми просто дивуємося, наскільки для них це важливо було берегти, що зараз, сьогодні, вони, маючи американське громадянство, тут, проживши вже 50 років, знають і говорять з нами українською.
So
Talk right into that. Can you turn that mic a little bit?
Like that?
Yes, perfect. Thank you. That's the mic he was using to mic his recycling bucket.
So, yeah, Ukrainians, they're always very happy to see us. We have a feeling that they were waiting for us so long. I mean, this is a natural way, like why they're expressing their emotions, etc. And many Ukrainians, like immigrants, they, for instance, those that have been living here like for all their lives, they know Ukrainian language through their parents and grandmothers, grandfathers, and this is so sweet and cute.
What does it feel like when you see so many people, I think in this part of the country in particular, in the United States, with Ukrainian flag stickers on their cars, or we support Ukraine? Do you get to see that? I see it all the time. What does it make you feel when you see things like that?
Коли ви бачите, і взагалі, ви зустрічали таке, що от на машинах люди, там в них український прапор, там значки. От як ви можете про це прореагувати? Що ви скажете?
Дуже раді. Нам дуже приємно, що це, також ми розуміємо, що це ці значки, прапори висять і на хатах чи там на машинах, де живуть українці, але також є великий відсоток американців. І нам дуже приємно, що таким чином вони нас підтримують, таким чином вони допомагають нашій країні і висловлюють свої співчуття і вдячність нашій країні.
Yeah, we noticed that many people they're using those flags or different attributes. And what makes us happy is that it's not just the Ukrainians. It's like people from United States, Americans, they are doing that, and this is a way of support. This is something very special.
Well, Yagody is going to have a special performance at Bombyx Center for Arts and Equity in Florence tonight. Thanks so much for joining us in studio today.
Yeah, this was amazing.
It
Thank
really
you so
is amazing.
much.
It's mesmerizing.
Of course, because
You're
the
playing
guy like in a bucket from the trash bucket, and I'm sitting like homeless, you know.
He is sitting in the corner
It was
over
very
here.
special for me.
We'll see you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.
Cheers.
Струменить рана, рана, струменить рана, рана.